me. This is, like I keep telling everybody, this is what is the heavy duty panel for Espousal Online, right? I thank each and every one of you being here today. I'm going to hand this over to Anjan, but before I do that, let me quickly tell you all and for the listeners outside who this gentleman is with a large beard. Okay. He's been in the media industry for 20 years, 300 odd events as a DJ. Cannot imagine that with a beard. Okay. He loves conscious fusion music. That's what he does. Done about 1,500 events as a freelancer, being primarily into radio over the last 20 years. That's what is Anjan. But on that note, Arun, Samit sir, Deepak Chaudhary, thank you so much for being here. And let's have some fun. This is going to be very, very interesting. Over to you, Anjan.
Thanks,
Anjan, are
Arvind,
you
for the
there?
intro, and welcome to all the viewers. Thanks, Arvind, for the intro, and I think we can start now. So I'd like to first welcome all the viewers and introduce our guest today. I think Prasad hasn't joined, so let me introduce our guests who have already come. Arvind, are you still going to be with us? Or? Okay, so let's start. So we have Arun Bablani from Vivah Events, more than 12 years of experience. He's based out of Dubai in the UAE, just like me. And they have organized multiple weddings, basically recognized as a luxury wedding planner internationally. Arun has a huge passion for travel and appreciation of different cultures. And he's used this as a skill to produce events for various locations, and he has created Viva, which is a paragon of perfection. And Arun's personal touch is implemented in all of the events, and each client appreciates that, and that's why Viva Weddings stands out. He's also the founder of the Middle East Wedding Association, which is the first of a kind consortium of wedding professionals in the region with a mission to promote the wedding industry and its network of professionals across Middle East and beyond. So a huge welcome to Arun. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you, Anjan.
I'd now like to introduce Deepak Chaudhary, who has more than 15 years of experience in the events industry, and he founded Event Capital in 2013 as an aggregator of event IPs. So he's carved a really nice niche for himself with multiple entrepreneurial ventures in the event space, from education institutes to an author, along with the creation of event IPs. The company has grown remarkably ever since to become India's most diverse live event IP company involved in aggregating and consolidating event IPs across target groups and platforms. So he's also the founder of Event FAQs and a chief mentor of the Whistling Woods International School of Events. And he also co-authored the first ever book on the Indian live event industry. So Deepak, thank you so much for joining us today.
Pleasure is mine, Anjan. Hi, Samit sir. Hi, Arun.
Hi, everybody.
Hello.
It's time now to introduce Samit, who is the co-founder and CEO of Factor Entertainment Private Limited. So this is an experiential firm that enjoys a near mythological status for creating enviable and transformative events and experiences in the industry. Samit is a disruptor who's rigorously created this journey after the air charter business that he was part of. And then now he started organizing luxury wedding events in the luxury wedding market. And now his heart is set on disrupting the antiquated tourism and experiential sports sector by introducing superlative and sustainable heritage tourism experiences for the global audience. For example, he took over the fabled Pushkar Fair in Rajasthan, and he's already introduced new age tourism properties like the Taj Balloon Festival, Amravati Dance Music Festival, the Vizag Yachting Festival, Champions Boat League, etc. in various states. So Amit has a core principle to leverage the valuable economic potential of natural, sporting and cultural initiatives through a holistic approach that goes beyond visualizing static art galleries. So it's helping link traditional ecosystems to the modern world. So thank you so much for joining us today, Samit.
Thank you, Anjan. The pleasure is entirely mine.
And as we all know, today's session, Arvind calls it a heavy duty session because, as we all would agree, a team is the most important part of any company, whether it's an events business or any other business. So today's topic is leadership in tough times and how do we manage your team. So I'm going to request all the members of our panel one by one to share with us some ideas on how their management of their team is happening in a smooth way or maybe not during these tough times. So maybe we can start with you, Arun.
Sure. I want to thank you for having me, guys. Like you said, this is a very important aspect of running our business, especially when it comes to event weddings, because there is no timelines, there is no work schedule, there is not. It's not a 9 to 5 sort of work. So we have to indeed take care of each other, look after our teams, and these are very uncharted territories that we're in at this point because everything is so uncertain and it's so fluid. And any plan that we've been making for a week, it does not apply to the next week. So a lot of things that would come into play at this point, especially when it comes to the emotional side of oneself. So I think one of the first things that I'd like to talk about is empathy. It's I wish there was a woman on this panel, but as men, this is, even though we are empathetic towards people, does not come from within. For example, women play a big role when it comes to empathy, and it's very clearly proven over the last few months with leaders around the world like Angela Merkel being from Germany, or Jacinda Ardern from New Zealand, or even if you talk about Sana Merrill from Finland, they were extremely empathetic towards their countries and as leaders. And for us also being leaders of our business, it was very important for us to start connecting with people on a personal level, on a human level. That emotional intelligence that we always thought about, but never went ahead and practiced because of the rat race we were in. We were working all the time, keeping busy, traveling. I used to be traveling almost 200 days out of the year, living out of a suitcase. Yeah, we did take care of about the basic necessities of each other, but we never actually looked into the personal aspect of people's life. To get more intimate view of people's life. For instance, who had kids, who was caring for an older parent. And it was also important to gain that deeper understanding of the mental and emotional toll that they were going through in these extreme changes and the daily schedules on the individual members of our team. So I guess empathy played a huge role, or another empathy is playing a big role of what we have learned over the last few months.
That's a fantastic point, and I think an empathetic leader is always wanted and needed in any organization. And I've seen that the most successful organizations have a core value of empathy distilled down from the leadership all the way till the lower ranks, and that makes them stand out. Thanks, Arun, for that insight. That's a really nice one.
Thank you, Anjan.
Deepak, would love to hear your thoughts on how you've managed your team during these tough times.
I loved what Arun said. Actually, Arun is more motivated. He's sitting in Dubai. I think we all are learning. We are learning from Dubai, Arun. I think our problems are not so easily getting over. I think so. So I think over here in the ecosystem of event management, I think Samit will talk more about it. It's been a tough time for overall Indian event industry. We are all together, and we are very working towards opening this industry soon. So in this period, I think if I take as few of the businesses of what I am at the helm of, somehow we're keeping it going by keeping. We have not let go the people. Okay, so that's one thing. And but all our we are somewhere part of the media ecosystem, but media has struggled. Our parent company is an outdoor company, and it's been fairly fairly very badly hit. So overall, but what we realize, our own business and we're core business of Event Capital, we had a lot of IPs. Now we're
I
using
think we lost
IPs.
Deepak there. He was just explaining how things are in his company. But Arun, do you want to? Oh, Deepak's back. Sorry, we lost you for a moment.
Okay, I'm audible now. Yeah. Okay, so we using our IPs to get our message out in various forms. So say for example, we're doing our bit. So say currently, yesterday, today, and tomorrow there is an event we're doing called Windmill Festival. It's a kids festival. We've made a hugely we worked on a technology, and we are seeing a lot of kids getting engaged from home. Okay, so we have made sure we keep our people occupied. Since we had an ecosystem and audiences, it was easy for us to get to them. Yeah, so we've used this as a way to keep the whole community and people involved. I think that's our bit in these times, and we will continue doing so.
Fantastic. So the key point there I take out is value. As long as you keep adding value to people, that itself becomes a strategy. Because, like Winston Churchill said, the price of greatness is responsibility. And as business leaders, you have a heavier responsibility on your shoulders than just being an employee. So thank you for that insight, Deepak. Samit, we'd love to hear your thoughts on how you have managed your team during these critical times.
Well, I actually appreciate and totally resonate with what Arun has started with. Empathy is extremely critical and important. And Deepak made a statement in which this one word is again very relevant, which is involvement. So keeping people involved is something also which is very critical and relevant to keeping them going. So I kind of we as a matter of fact we've gone back to our physics, chemistry, and mathematics days in class 10th and 12th when we used to say PCM. So we followed the formula of PCM, and actually we created or evolved or learned this formula as we went along when lockdown came upon us. So patience, compassion, and motivation are the three words that we've tried to focus on, as the last 4-5 months, all of us know, have been very bad. So patience, because all kinds of people, whether they are your employees, whether they are your colleagues, whether they are your partners, even at home, everybody is looking for a shoulder to cry on. And sitting at a position where you are responsible, where you are playing the character and role of a leader, you unfortunately do not have any other option but to listen to everybody very patiently. And at times it tends to become very hard, especially if the number of people and the kind of people that you're dealing with come from different genres and their quantities are large. So patience has been important, because we know that, and all of us have gone through it. We have dealt with different kinds of people in different kinds of situations. Compassion, very similar to what empathy is all about, is something that has played a very important part and role. We have to kind of make sure that we listen to them. We have to make sure that we understand what their problems are, because letting go of people is probably very easy. And I know that there are friends, larger enterprises in the industry where, with a sad heart, people may have had to let go of many colleagues, but still, standing in the thick and thin of affairs and dealing with them on a daily basis is different. So you have to be compassionate. And then while you are being patient and you're being compassionate, you are being empathetic, you are wanting to keep them involved, it's also very important that you keep them motivated. Now, how do you keep them motivated when you actually know that there's nothing happening around? So, the biggest motivation for all of us actually comes when we are doing events and we achieve success in doing something, and then there's somebody coming to you and patting your back. But unfortunately, nothing like that is happening. So finding motivation in these circumstances is something that has been very difficult, and we've tried to do our best. So हमने तो ख्वाबों की दुनिया में मोटिवेट करने की कोशिश की है लोगों को, and to a certain extent we have been able to achieve some success, and in some cases we've not been. So I think by and large this is how, you know, our physics, chemistry and mathematics has worked in the last 5 months.
What a beautiful analogy, taking us back to our, college days, PCM, patience, compassion, motivation. Very nicely put. And they say that when the sea is calm, it's always easy to steer the ship and be at the helm. But the true mark of the captain comes out when the sea is rough. And all three of you being industry leaders and having successful businesses in this industry have shown that you're able to steer the ship even when the waters are not so calm. So, on that topic, I'd like to hear your thoughts. Arun, what has been the biggest challenges and how have you overcome it as an employer and as an entrepreneur? It could even be some incidents or examples of what some employees have come and asked of you, or something that you felt you diffused before it started, or like Samit says, how you motivated them with Fabo, with their dreams. So anything that you feel that our viewers today can take home as an insight or as an input from your own experience over the last few months of this lockdown and pandemic, where the event industry has pretty much been shut down.
I mean, Anjan, bottom line is challenge has been the forefront of this whole pandemic. We are known as an industry to be resilient. We're known to firefight on a regular basis, on a daily basis, with our work, with our lives, with our relationships, with our families. But this is, like I initially said, these are uncharted territories. So it's not like there's a guidebook that we could go through to understand. So there were multiple challenges that we faced as a company. First one was about basic survival. I didn't know how long this is going to last. I didn't know how many more months will we not have business. We still don't have business, even though Dubai as a city and UAE as a country has opened up for tourism, and our malls are open and people are going about as normal, obviously practicing the social distancing rules, and we're supposed to be wearing masks. We have not started weddings. So but my big concern about this situation was, how long is this going to last? Do I have the finances to continue running the business? Like Samit said earlier, it was with a very heavy heart. We had to let people go, and because we're emotional people by heart, and that makes us a part of this industry, because we understand people's emotions and how they think and feel. We held on to a big chunk of our team members for as long as we physically could. But now it's been 8 months, and we had to let a few people go with a very heavy heart. But it is what needed to be done if we had to extend the runway for as much as possible. So that company survival, I think, was one of the main challenges of this. So the idea was to try and keep your cost bare minimum, and we didn't know to how long we had to do this. So we had to initially work on instincts, and even like I said, the situation is fluid, and things are even now. We don't know how long it'll take for us to do our first wedding, and when we'll get back to doing our 500 to 1,000 people wedding. So that was, I think, one of the main challenges. The second one that comes to mind was keeping everyone's morale high. I'm sure this is something that all leaders faced, whether it was our business within the events and weddings sector, or a CEO of Tesla, Elon Musk. Was to maintain and build morale of our teams. It has been extremely stressful last 6 months, and the increasing uncertainty about when things will get back to normal, when there'll be a recovery, and the raising fear within everyone. Burnout had become a real threat. People were nervous. People didn't know which way to head. The environment was so rapidly changing. And our priorities have become just keeping their morals up, keeping them challenged, keeping them motivated, keeping them focused and positive, and avoiding burnout. So that was again something that was a big challenge for us. which is, like I said, something that we do on a daily basis, but not on that level. So the focus and the priority was not keeping the morale. The priority for us was always been, keeping our clients happy, and that we do as a team together, which in turn keeps us motivated. But here things were a bit different. So keeping my team's morale high was again a big challenge for us as a company.
Thank you for Arun for painting that vivid picture of how it is in the situation. And yeah, even though the event industry is slowly opening back up, none of us really know when we can do a 500 or 1,000, guest wedding. So very valid challenges, and I feel you've handled them very well. So thank you for those sharing. Deepak, we'd love to hear from you now on what your biggest challenges were and how you managed to handle them. And if you have any anecdotes or any incidents that you can also share with specific employees or any stories that you can share that can add value to all our viewers.
No, I don't want to share any actually the employee story. Rather, see, I'll tell you where I'm entrepreneurially driven. Okay, so all our efforts, I have just allowed people to make more mistakes. Yeah, I've increased the percentage of the mistakes they make. Okay, so I've said give your ideas, get onto your new ideas, and make them possible. So don't worry about in which direction it's going. Yeah, so that's where and pick up phone on them. Hear them, hear their long chats, show your concern, and I think you don't have to go beyond. I'm saying just be involved with them, okay? And I think entrepreneurially we've done that through ideation, and it's worked for us in some pieces, and somewhere we failed miserably. So I think that's what I have done.
I appreciate you saying you don't want to share any specific employees' ideas, but can you elaborate a bit more on this entrepreneurial idea of allowing people to fail? Because I feel many people need to hear this, and they need to hear that failure is not such a bad thing, and mistakes are not such a terrible thing to make. And in fact, somebody like you at the helm of the leadership, if they can trickle down this idea that failure truly is the route to success, then that is the sign that an organization is definitely going to keep growing as long as they can learn from their failures. So I'd like you to elaborate on this a bit more for all our viewers, to actually share the thought process behind allowing people to make mistakes.
So I'll tell you one of the ideas. Samit has been involved party to that Festival of Festivals. We were very bullish about that idea that we want to. We got the fantastic 15 festivals from around the country to get curated there and perform and be a part of that whole event. And we realized we were able to gather a noise. We were being able to gather a value for a lot of people, but we realized we couldn't excite a consumer to come on it. Okay, so I think we didn't realize that online fatigue is so high that to get a consumer who doesn't want to come to online because he finds that going online is work. Okay, so and they were really looking for entertainment. I think that was a sheer effort which didn't give that value to a success of what we could have done. So that's one of the examples.
Fantastic. And I'd now like to ask Mr. Samit Garg to share with us his challenges and the challenges that the company has faced over the last 2 months. And if you're willing also to share some specific incidents or stories so that can add value to all our viewers.
To be honest, Tanjan, I don't really think that we've faced any very distinctive challenges. We've been fortunate. God's been very kind. I think to begin with, we are a very small team. We're not a very large team in our company. So just about 27, 28 people, and we work collectively out of just one office, which is headquartered in Noida. So when lockdown started, the first 15 days actually was a holiday, because when the first lockdown was declared, it was supposed to be just about 10 odd days or whatever. And then gradually the 15 days became 27 and then 35 or whatever. So somewhere in the third week, we realized that, okay, boss, we've had enough. And then, the Zoom story happened to all of us. So all of a sudden, the world was zooming from here to there, etc. So we also started to Zoom. So every morning at 11 o'clock, we used to kind of get together, all 24, 25 of us on one common platform, और हम 2 घंटा रोज सुबह फालतू की बातें करते थे, फालतू के सपने देखते थे. But those फालतू की बातें and फालतू के सपने was actually very interesting, because after a lot of time, we realized that we're actually getting some time to do nothing. And those nothing conversations were very enjoyable to begin with. But after 2, 3 weeks, the nothing conversations started to become very boring, because then the mathematics in you started to kind of surface gradually, and you realized कि बहुत सब 1.5 महीना निकल गया. So what is it that you're getting out of it? And we're all used to measuring success by either getting a bonus, or by getting the complete payment, or by getting some pat from your backs, etc., etc. So there was no formula of measuring what are we actually doing. We're not going to make any pitch. We're not doing anything. So we are just thinking. We are making presentations. So the people in the office who are responsible to make presentations are making presentations. And who are they showing the presentations to? They're showing the presentations to all of us internally. So, bhai, हाँ ये बहुत अच्छा है, ये करेंगे. So we dreamt. So I wouldn't say that we wasted time. There is a learning in every time that you waste. And I would want to add, when Deepak mentioned about allowing people to fail, so obviously, nothing ventured, nothing gained. And if you don't dare to fail, then you will actually never be able to do anything. And we also follow the same philosophy. So we created some fantastic presentations. हमने सोचा यार everybody is doing digital work, we'll also do digital work. So we thought of doing an online event, a festival which is called the India International Science Festival that we did 2 years ago, which had about 130,000 people participating. It happens in October. We made a fantastic presentation, some 140 odd slides, thinking that, okay, we'll be able to do it virtually and get 250,000 people on board attending the event at the same time. Went to the minister the moment the lockdown opened, etc., etc. Sorry, nothing. So we made many presentations, and unfortunately, in June, July, August, when those presentations were made to respective people, we realized that there is nothing positive coming out of it. So the only challenge, I would say, that we had to encounter in the last 3 months was the challenge of dejection. And we're laughing about it today, but we know that we have made some 12 or 13 good presentations, और भगवान की कृपा से हम थोड़ा सा काम ठीक ठाक कर लेते हैं, तो थोड़ा स्केल बड़ा होता है हमारी चीजों का. So it's not that those presentations can be created in 2-3 days, etc. But dejection was something which was kind of becoming a habit, and a habit that we just not used to. Because again, we've been blessed historically. Our success rate on projects has been very, very high. So the way we've countered or handled dejection was कि भाई कोई बात नहीं, ये नहीं मिला तो इससे और बड़ा सोचते हैं. So maybe we can't think. So we know that we can't think digital. So we participated in the festival that Deepak was talking of, that he curated, the festival of festivals. हमने पहली बार अपनी जिंदगी में कुछ डिजिटल काम किया था, and but कुछ हटके किया था. So I don't know whether that was the reason why we didn't get anybody coming onto a platform, or the platform was actually बिल्कुल third class. So there has been learning in everything that we've been doing, but the best way, the biggest challenge, as I said, was dejection, and which was handled by parking that on the side and saying that, all right, if we have done this up to this level, maybe we'll take it a rung higher, and probably we'll be able to fare better. And trust me, out of those 13 presentations that we made, we've revised 4, and all 4 of them have now been sold at a higher platform. So we've faced challenges, we've learned from those challenges, and by God's grace, we are now seeing some light at the end of some tunnels.
Fantastic. That sounds like a nice success story in the making, because if you and your team have picked up digital skills without having any digital skills, that in itself is commendable. So
Well,
I wanted to.
I don't know. Yeah, please.
Please go on.
No, I'm saying I really don't know how to comment on that, but वो कहते हैं ना जब तक कुछ हो नहीं जाता तब तक मानना नहीं चाहिए अच्छा था या बुरा था. So let it happen, and when it happens, then we will know.
Anyway, as I was sharing with Arvind, this lockdown has given everybody a chance to actually slow down and revisit the capitalistic agenda of productivity. And like you said, enjoy doing nothing sometimes, because we're all so caught up in doing things. Sometimes we forget to just be. And this is also the essence of my yogic practices, which is moving from a state of constant doing to a state of being. Because only when you stop doing can you become a human being. Till then, you're a human doing. So, on the note of dejection, I actually want to talk about optimism. Now, during these times, it's important for leaders to lead with optimism, but in a practical sense, not a don't worry, everything will be fine kind of an optimism, but an optimism which gives the team the hope and the knowledge that everything is going to be all right. They're going to make it safely and effectively through the crisis. And there might be messages you told your team, like if we stick together, we're going to be fine. I know this is a good team. We're going to succeed. So I wanted to talk about how did you handle this element with your team? How did you give them the optimism needed? In a practical sense, the animals like us, like primates, we need optimism in order to increase our own survival rate. So especially in this crisis, and especially those difficult months, March, April, May, June, when we didn't even know if digital events will work or nothing had yet really kicked off. You were making presentation summit, and Arun, you were deciding what to do with your staff, and Deepak, you were reconfiguring and allowing people to fail. How did you infuse optimism into your teams? Arun, we'd like to hear from you first.
Thanks, Anjan. Yeah, I mean, listen, I think before we even went on with being optimistic, we went through the whole 5 stages of grief. It was interesting because initially when this first happened, we were actually in the middle of a wedding, and I got a call from a client saying, "Listen, we're really nervous about this upcoming wedding in mid-March, or we're really nervous about this wedding happening in April. And what do you think about it?" And we were like, "No, it's all fine. It's a matter of 2 weeks. Sab theek ho jayega. Everything is going to go back to normal. Let's not worry about it." From that to everything changing, our team focusing on cancellation of events. The first, I think, 2 months we focused on cancellation and trying to explain to people how this was going to pan out, even though we didn't know much about it, to eventually going to the acceptance of it's happened now, what is to be done. I think the first step was first to take care of ourselves in order to convince ourselves that this has happened. And now we need to stay strong, we need to stay positive, we need to stay motivated to then wanting to motivate your team. So we sat down, brainstormed, came up with ideas on how to keep the team motivated, and we implemented a few things that we thought was out of the ordinary, that was out of the basic stuff. Obviously, your basic stuff would be things like being flexible, which it might be basic but plays a huge role, to be as flexible with your team as possible. Like Deepak said, letting them make the mistakes, being flexible with their time, helping them and understanding their lives. Obviously, communication was key. So I had to always remember that whatever plan we make can change. So I was prepared to adjust. The more information I shared with the team, the more easily they were being able to cope. So that flexibility was extremely important. The second thing we did was we celebrated success. Didn't care if it was small or big. We recognized and we rewarded good work. People do extraordinary work to demonstrate the astonishing kindness in this kind of time, in this pandemic. And we do everything in our power to encourage people to recognize each other and recognize themselves in whichever way possible. We set time aside to celebrate any achievement from work or from personal. So every time we had these meetings that Samitji was talking about, we also took time to understand people's personal lives, what was going on. Oh, your parents are fine. Oh, kids are doing okay. How you train the kids? How's the homeschooling coming along? How's your family back home? And then, if anything, even on a personal level, they felt like they had achieved. We celebrated that. We learned to share good news and good stories, and we quite enjoyed that. The other thing we did was refreshing people's roles and responsibilities. I started treating everybody in the company like they were a management trainee. So if someone was doing X task for the last 3 years of their business, we moved them to something that they had never done before, purely to keep them motivated, to keep them entertained, to keep them engrossed, to keep them focused. That was something that we really enjoyed, even among ourselves. So people changing their roles and responsibilities. It was also very vital that we were accessible to the team, and established open channels of communication during this period of roles and responsibilities being refreshed. But it was something fun we did, and it kept everybody motivated. So these were the few things we implemented into our company.
Fantastic. If any of our viewers had a notepad and you were taking notes, there were some really cool pointers there, like sharing more information, being flexible, celebrating small successes, recognitions and rewards, and refreshing roles and responsibilities. And I hope as entrepreneurs, all of us and even people who are watching can perhaps take these key learnings and also apply them even when there is no crisis situation, because these are the marks of a great company in making, Arun. So thank you so much for sharing that. Deepak, would love to hear from you. How did you manage optimism and keeping your teams motivated during this time?
So I'll tell you, in the beginning, like as both Arun also said and Samit said, in the beginning, while it started, I think our entrepreneurship failed that day. We thought that we were telling people tomorrow it'll open, don't worry, everything will be okay. And when we went to them again, they see you as if earlier they see us as they know we know it all, but we failed that day. Okay, so now it was difficult to tell them, boss, this is going to be the life. Now when you've realized that that's going to be the life. Now you have to make them realize that's going to be a life. Okay, now what we did, or we've tried to do, or we are trying to do, is help them see the future. Okay, so what we've done is we've actually broken their lives in 3 months, 6 months, 9 months. Okay, so that they get a plan of action, they can see their 9 months what they're doing. Okay, now first assumptions, we made assumptions like it is clear that it's not going to go anywhere, this is the new way of living. Okay, it will take time to open. So think about the worst is it's not going to open. Now live this as a reality and draw a plan of 3, 6, 9 months. Okay, now, and with that I said, let's look at tech, innovation and digital. Okay, and take these times as opportunities. Now, so everybody, if realize these times as an opportunity, started working on tech, digital and innovation, and draw that in 3, 6, 9 months, I think there is some change and some better stuff we've been able to do. Yeah, otherwise they well, that's what we to keep as job of ours as entrepreneur online alive. That's what I did. So that's to be the summation of mine.
And this was motivating enough for them to actually have the ability to foresee that life is indeed unpredictable. So even if they made the 6-month plan, they might have to change it. Like you said, you had to change your plans constantly, and that's as event managers, it's a second nature for all of you to make last-minute plan changes and to firefight in a way, like one of you said some time ago. So did this actually help your employees, Deepak, and how?
I don't know. Definitely, like from a current perspective of their mindsets are much better. Their motivations levels are much higher. Their conversations are positive. They were not. They earlier times used to see depression, but they're working towards a plan. They're not depressed. So I think it is definitely help. There's no. If they can see what's going to happen, their lives. If this is the life and this is a good life, if you make them believe, then they're happy. That's what you have to create parallel. So it's a storytelling.
Nice.
What we hear from our friends Roshan and Samit is a great storyteller. We will have to create the story for them. So that's what we've done. I think in these times.
One of my gurus used to tell me, he said, we're all telling stories all the time. Might as well make your story magnificent.
True.
So I'm glad you're deploying these ideas of helping people carve out an idea of their own future and guiding them and helping them understand that in the next 3 or 6 months, it might change again. That's fantastic. Thanks for having that sharing, Deepak. Now, Samit, we'd like to hear how have you managed to optimize and kind of motivate your employees and have this. I know you've already put in the PCM model, but how does the optimism work?
A little bit of everything. So what Arun said, what Deepak said, and two things that I would want to add. And we've all kind of grown up in life. We've grown through various experiences, etc., etc. So as Deepak was mentioning, that storytelling is something that some of us are very fond of. तो हमको कहानियां सुनने का भी बहुत शौक था, सुनाने का भी बहुत शौक था. एक कहानी, so there was a story that I remembered, and I remembered the story sometime in the last weeks of the month of May, that अगर एक पिक्चर में जो आपके किरदार और एक्टर्स हैं ना, if they are not being able to perform very well, means they have some side roles, आप सबको हीरो बना दो. So if you make everybody a hero, then all of a sudden things will start to perform very, very differently. And I'm honestly telling you that is something that we did. So the peon in the office, for example, was made a caretaker. So for him, all of a sudden, the responsibility goes just from jhadu pocha, maintaining the kitchen, etc., to the caretaker of the whole complex. So he automatically is motivated. Somebody whose responsibility was just to go to the site and make sure that the truckage is handled properly, maal unload ho raha hai, load ho raha hai. उसको हमने कहा यार अब तुम प्रोडक्शन मैनेजर का काम करो. So why didn't you start preparing these checklists, etc. So somebody who was actually only doing the job of a production manager, we said, why don't you go and sit on the ideation board and start thinking of ideas? In June, when the government tenders started to come out, so okay, these are the smaller tenders that you can look into. Why don't you drive these? So somebody who was only making presentations was given the responsibility of a storyteller. So that is something that we actually did all across, where we gave them higher roles and we made everybody a hero. So the sense of motivation, despite the fact that there was actually nothing happening in terms of tactile business, but everybody felt very, very motivated. And we are actually very, very optimistic people, Anjan. So, every coin has two sides. So instead of saying that, okay, 80,000 people got infected in Wuhan, we would say that see the way America is handling this whole situation. So at that point in time, whatever was to our advantage, which made people look at the better side, is what used to be made the conversation point. So I think these were some simple things that we followed, and I'm glad that we've kind of sailed through the toughest.
Brilliant. I love that your peon now is called caretaker, and soon he might even become, caregiving manager or something like that.
I'm sure.
So I wanted to also, because you mentioned this, obviously structures have changed. And when I started my career in events, I think in '98, and the first few years, what I really enjoyed, besides the work, was the sutta breaks and the water cooler conversations, so to say. Everything that's away from work, when you take your team and go out and have some chai, that was the most exciting part as a young events executive. So I know that now the structures have changed, all that has disappeared. Your employees no longer have water cooler conversations, no longer can come and gossip about their bosses. So how have you maintained this structure internally and also within the team and as a managerial line, and also intra, which is team member to team member? And working from home, as you know, is a blessing for many people, but for many people it's been a curse. And I have friends who fought with their wives and are sick of their dogs, and and they're just dying to go to a co-working space or to get out, especially in the events business. And the pulse is actually on site and at a wedding or at an event or at the production. How are your teammates and how are your colleagues coping with this working from home structure? Have you put in any structural kind of guidelines? Do you have any tips to give to anybody now in the events business to put these guidelines? And because your commercial staff are not as busy as they previously were, so how are they naturally responding to things like tenders or customer queries or leads or sales or any of these? So I just wanted to touch upon the structural kind of changes that you have made over the last few months. So Arun, let's start with you again, as usual.
Thanks, Anjan. So when it comes to remotely working, as an entrepreneur, as a leader of this company, that was something that we were doing, that at least I was doing quite regularly, because we're mostly on flights and living out of suitcases. So Zoom was something that we were using, and Skype is something that we were using for the last 4 to 5 years. And we speak to our brides and grooms and vendors at odd hours and odd times of the day, be it 4 in the morning, or depends on where you are. Sometimes you have to wake up and set an alarm to wake up just to make these commitments, and that's one of the reasons why we got into the business. It's purely based on passion, so it doesn't seem like much of a work, but it's something that we've been doing and something that we've been used to very comfortably. But like I said earlier, it may have not been the same with the entire team. So like Samitji earlier said, that initially this was fun when we sat on Zoom calls every morning and were discussing what is to be done and what way forward and what is your idea and what do you think. And we also went ahead and started working on presentations. And basic is, we were given time that we didn't want. We were very happy with the rat race that we were in, with our full schedules and our meetings, and took great pride in telling people how busy we were. But with this coming into play, it was something that took a lot of time getting used to for the team, and we tried to make the most of it. We tried to stay relevant with it. We tried to get the team to get accustomed to it. And lucky for us, being in Dubai, because of the strong leadership we had, the lockdown was over within 30 to 40 days. Anjan, you live here too, so we didn't even call it a lockdown. We called it the National Sterilization Program. So we are very good with our words. And it was a matter of 30 to 45 days, and then everyone went back to normal. To keep them motivated, we obviously, and to get everybody back into the office, we got our office sterilized. Lucky for us, and we're blessed because we have a large office, so people could socially distance when they're sitting now and getting back to work. But it's been a fun journey. It's been a journey of learning and excitement. And now that we're seeing light at the end of the tunnel, we're hoping that things will eventually get back to normal.
Nice. Yeah, that's the advantage of living in a city like Dubai, where I feel it's one of the most controlled, results of the epidemics and the pandemic that has happened. And of course, with the safety protocols and the cleanliness and the social distancing, most offices have their employees coming back. But even then, there was a phase when you were not working, and it seems like you've handled it well.
Yeah, it was quite.
Sorry, go on, Arun.
No, I was just saying it was quite an interesting time when not only were we, like I as an owner of the company, who lived on our laptop, and then we had 15 people in different parts of the city trying to sit together every morning and discussing, and even the thought process and what came out of it. Like I said, it was time we didn't want, but we had it, so we tried to make the most of it.
Fantastic. Thanks, Arun. Let's hear from you, Deepak.
So I'll tell you, it's not actually, your question is much deeper than how much we think. We don't think so much. I think what what we've done, I think the change what has happened, there's no structural change happened in the life of a people. The structure change has happened in our lives. Okay, so what has happened is we were getting help of too many people. Now the difference only happened is we have to do everything. Yeah, so while sitting at home, I think what happened is I was planning also. I was only writing my own stuff because it was ease that you call somebody and say, please get this done, which was not happening. Yeah, so we couldn't change too much lives of our people because we couldn't add that value in a down ecosystem. But we've changed ourselves. I think I have learned a lot in this time and improved on a few of the things I was weak at. Yeah, so that's what has happened. In if you say directly from the structure point of view. Yeah.
Okay, fantastic. Amit, I hear you're leaving soon, so we'll hear your thoughts on this before we let you go.
No, so I kind of a little concur with Deepak on this, because we are not a very structurally driven enterprise. We are a very experientially driven enterprise. So even in casualties of any sorts, we try and find experiences, and if we don't find them, we try and create them. So, but jokes apart, the 2-3 key things which I think instead of structure have happened to us. One is that we kind of went back to school. So all of us, I'm not saying that only my colleagues, even us, we've all gone back to our school days, because the kind of learning we've had in the last 4 or 5 months is phenomenal. हमने पिछले 10 साल में उतना नहीं सीखा जितना हमने पिछले 4 या 5 महीनों में सीखा है. We've actually bought courses. Some of my office colleagues have Harvard certificates to boast of now because they've attended 3-month and 4-month programs. Somebody in architecture, somebody in storytelling, somebody in curating museum spaces, etc., etc. So the journey has been very enriching, and we've kind of made sure that we made good use of the time. So the structure or progression has been around learning. A lot of de-skilled people have been skilled. One thing for sure, I think that's something that all of us have learned. We've become definitely way more conscious about things like hygiene and well-being, and yeah. So this is basically what's happened, and we have probably become a little more brave. We were, as it is, a very outgoing and a brave enterprise, but I think the last 5 months the last 5 months have made us braver. So that's all that I would have to say to this.
Anjan lost connection at the apt moment. Okay.
I thought he was making way for you.
His 70% of Anjan's screen is his beard. So
Yeah.
Now he's smiling. We can see his white teeth also. So that's
I've got to quickly say thank you so much, Samitji. I mean, you have really come out and done this for us, for which I'm really, really grateful. Arun Bablani, I look forward to shaking your hand someday soon in the near future. And Deepak Chaudhary, you have always been a support. Anjan, absolutely great. You know, I was sitting backstage and listening to all of you, and I said, this is amazing stuff, you know. I do a little Insta live at 6 p.m. every day. I talk to all kinds of people, Samit Gar included. He has also come for one of my Insta lives, okay? And then I speak to people like Anjan. I speak to all kinds of people. I speak to artists and everybody. But one thing that is common with everybody, once this pandemic is over and gone, I think it just becomes a level playing field, because we are all starting at the same point and reinventing ourselves, right? So the first mover advantage and all of that is now passé. That's my opinion to wrap up whatever else it is. Thank you so much, gentlemen. Thank you so much.
I hope it happens just the way you think it will happen, Arvind. But I don't want to sound a contrarian, although that's the theory I believe and live with. But ये पुरानी रेस खत्म हो जाएगी, नई रेस शुरू हो जाएगी.
रेस तो शुरू होएगी, लेकिन स्टार्टिंग पॉइंट सबके लिए वही होगा.
भाई साहब, शुरुआत में स्टार्टिंग पॉइंट हमेशा वही होता है.
Two new beginnings. Okay. Thank you,
To
everybody.
happier beginnings. Yes, to happier
Thank
beginnings.
you, guys. Thank you very much.
Thank you so very much.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye,
It was
Deepak.
lovely.
Bye, Anurag.